All right, you want to turn in your Bibles here, if you haven't already, Ruth chapter 3 and 4. Looks like some of you are finding your notes there for lesson 92 in Shelby, so... Ruth chapters 3 and 4. Bible, Joel? Oh, yeah, you got it there. Good. Lesson 92. Okay. This is where we're at. We'll see how Ruth becomes a mother of Jesus here. An important aspect of that. So, Naomi went back, we had saw last time, to the land of Canaan because it was the land of promise. She was an Israelite. We would say she was a Jew. Ruth was not, right? She was a Moabitess. And here she was going to come and live amongst the Jews. I might say an outsider. But as one who had God's love working in her heart, she desired to be like the other people. She wanted that promise. She desired that promise as a child of God. And so one way that she can become part of the land of Israel, part of that nation, is by marrying a good godly man of the nation of Israel. In that way, she partakes, or will be able to partake of that promise. Okay? So we'll see that today. Ruth's desire for marriage here. Alright? So, we saw last time she's gleaning in the field of Boaz. He's noticed her. He's specifically told his servants to leave extra wheat and barley and everything behind for her so that she has enough to eat. So, she obviously gleans it, carries it back in her bag or skirt or dress, whatever, back to her mother-in-law Naomi's place. And that's where we pick it up at chapter 3, verse 1. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said unto her, My daughter, shall I not seek rest for thee, that it might be well with thee? And now is not Boaz of our kindred, with whose maidens thou wast? Behold, he winnoweth barley tonight in the threshing floor. Wash thyself, therefore, and anoint thee, and put thy raiment upon thee, and get thee down to the floor. But make not thyself known unto the man until he shall have done eating and drinking. And it shall be when he lieth down that thou shalt mark the place where he shall lie, and thou shalt go in and uncover his feet, and lay thee down, and he will tell thee what thou shalt do. And she said unto her, All that thou sayest unto me I will do. And she went down unto the floor, and did according to all that her mother-in-law bade her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and when his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of corn. And she came softly, and uncovered his feet, and laid her down. And it came to pass at midnight that the man was afraid, and turned himself, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. And he said, Who art thou? And she answered, I am Ruth, thine handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid, for thou art a near kinsman. After Ruth arrives back with her arms full, Naomi, probably understanding and seeing how Boaz had spoken to Ruth, maybe taken an interest in her. Here she's got all this additional gleaning. Probably knows something's in the works. But she also knows that it would be good for Ruth to find a husband. That's why she says it's not good for you to rest here, or that she wants to find her a place of rest. Not one where she has to always be busy here in the house of Naomi, but that she can go out and she can be a wife to a good godly husband in Israel. And so she tells her a plan. It's the time of year in which the men have taken now the grains out of the field and they bring them to the threshing floor where they will beat them and work them and grind them so that they can make bread and cakes and cornmeal and everything else that they're going to need. It's heavy, hard work, and it's something that apparently they must have done day in and day out by staying at the threshing floor. Not every man owned his own threshing floor. They were expensive. They were hard to keep. Usually that's where we get the idea of someone who might have been a miller back in the day. He owned a mill, and everyone could bring their harvest to him, and he would grind it up and bag it up for him, and they would give it back. And as payment, he would get some of that food, or maybe they might trade services. So it must be that they spend their days here, a lot of time at the threshing floor. So much so that they sleep there in the evening, in the cool of the day, and Naomi knows this. Okay? So she gives Ruth some instructions. She says to Ruth, now here's what you're going to do. You're going to go ahead and look and go down to that threshing floor. But before you go, you've got to change something about yourself, Ruth. You see, Ruth was a widow, and widows wore certain clothing. And no man would approach a widow wearing that clothing because she was still in mourning. Mourning the loss of her husband, her loved one. And so it's time. Naomi says, you need to take off your widow's clothing, go freshen up, clean yourself, and put on new clothes that shows that you are ready once again to be married. And she puts on a nice perfume, we read there. And here's the plan. You're going to go to that threshing floor. You're going to go there and watch. Maybe stay a distance away, maybe on the hillside, maybe behind some trees or some bushes. But keep yourself hidden. Don't let the men there see you. And then in the evening, when you notice that all of them have finished their work and they're done eating and drinking, wait, give them some time to rest. They'll lie down. And then, quietly, when they're all asleep, walk to the place and find Boaz. You'll find him covered with a blanket. Lift that blanket up off his feet. We read here that she does that. She lays down there on the threshing floor at his feet. There's a couple of reasons why she would do that. One, okay, it shows that she wanted to be one of God's covenant children. Okay. It also shows that she was willing, once again, to have a husband. She wanted to be protected by this husband. She wanted him to care for her, to watch over her, and to protect her. So she does it. She goes and she lies down at his feet, by his feet. We read that in the middle of the night he awakes, Boaz does. And he was afraid at first because there was a woman lying at his feet. He's probably concerned about what the other men will think or see, so he's very quiet about it. And what does he do? He speaks to her. And she asks, I am Ruth, or says, I am Ruth the handmaid. Spread therefore thy skirt over thine handmaid. That skirt there being some type of covering, a blanket. Put that over top of me. And that was a picture, a sign. Okay? A picture of her being part of that covenant that God has given to his children. Boaz is sharing that with her too, just as God covers us with his friendship, so Boaz covers Ruth with this blanket, a picture of that friendship. And by that we see the beautiful, she doesn't want to be Ruth the Moabitess anymore. She wants to be Ruth, the child of God. Okay? So then what happens? Verse 10, keep following there. And he said, Blessed be thou of the Lord, my daughter, for thou hast showed more kindness in the latter end than at the beginning, inasmuch as thou followest not young men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, fear not. I will do to thee all that thou requirest. For all the city of my people doth know that thou art a virtuous woman. And now it is true that I am thy near kinsman. Howbeit, there is a kinsman nearer than I. Tarry this night, and it shall be in the morning that if he will perform unto thee the part of a kinsman, well, let him do the kinsman's part. But if he will not do the part of a kinsman to thee, then I will do the part of a kinsman to thee, as the Lord liveth. Lie down until the morning. And she lay at his feet until the morning, and she rose up before one could know another. And he said, Let it not be known that a woman came into the floor. And he said, Bring the veil that thou hast upon thee, and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 measures of barley, and laid it on her, and she went into the city. And when she came to her mother-in-law, she said, Who art thou, my daughter? And she told her all that the man had done to her. And she said, These 6 measures of barley gave me. For he said to me, Go not empty unto thy mother-in-law. Then she said, Sit still, my daughter, until thou know how the matter will fall, for the man will not be in rest until he have finished the thing this day. So Boaz speaks kindly to her. He explains to her what the problem here is, the situation. The law of the land, God's law, was that when you have a widow, the next closest relative must care for that widow. And the way that they do that is by marrying them and taking their possessions. Okay? But one thing is that if any children are born to them, they will be considered the children of the dead. Okay? So again, in my example, if I died and I was living in Canaan at the time, the Old Testament laws, my younger brother who's not married would have to marry my wife. But any children that were born would be considered my children. They would have the honor, they would have the abundance, the riches, they would have whatever I would, nowadays we talk about a will, but whatever I would leave to them would be theirs. Okay? And so that's what Boaz explains here to Ruth. And he says, look, there's one relative that is closer to you than I am. So we must go talk to him first. And if he is willing to watch over you and care for you and be your husband, then it will be that way. But if he will not, then I will be. This probably gives Ruth great excitement, joy in her heart. Once again, she can be married. Maybe she can have the hope of a child that she doesn't have. She can also have the desire, the knowledge that she will be loved and cared for. But especially, and probably most importantly, what she is joyful in her heart about is being part of the covenant children of Israel. So they lie there during the night, and in the morning, she wakes up early before it's light enough to see. She whispers with Boaz, and he takes some handfuls of the milled grain there that can be used to make bread or flour or whatever, and he fills it up into something for her. And she takes that back with her to her mother-in-law, Naomi, and tells her all that has happened. And Naomi says, now rest here, my daughter. There's lots of things that need to happen today. We can imagine Ruth being restless, wanting to know her future. Will I be married to this man, or will I be married to Boaz? What's my future? And Naomi has to say, rest here. There's a lot that will happen today. He will take care of it. So let's see what Boaz does. Chapter 4. Then went Boaz up to the gate and sat him down there, and behold, the kinsman of whom Boaz spake came by, unto whom he said, Ho, such a one! Turn aside, sit down here. And he turned aside and sat down. And he took 10 men of the elders of the city and said, Sit ye down here. And they sat down. And he said unto the kinsman, Naomi, that is come again out of the country of Moab, selleth a parcel of land, which was our brother Elimelech's. And I thought to advertise thee, saying, Buy it before the inhabitants and before the elders of my people. If thou wilt redeem it, redeem it. But if thou wilt not redeem it, then tell me. that I may know, for there is none to redeem it besides thee, and I am after thee. And he said, I will redeem it. Then said Boaz, what day thou buyest the field of the hand of Naomi, thou must buy it also of Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of the dead, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance. And the kinsman said, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I mar mine own inheritance. Redeem thou my right to thyself, for I cannot redeem it. Now this was the manner in the former time in Israel concerning redeeming and concerning changing. For to confirm all things, a man plucked off his shoe and gave it to his neighbor, and this was a testimony in Israel. Therefore the kinsman said unto Boaz, buy it for thee. So he drew off his shoe. Okay. Boaz goes to the gate of the city where he would find the leaders and the men there. And he's probably a well-respected businessman. He goes and he's waiting. And as he's waiting there, he sees this closer relative pass through the gate. He says, ho, ho! He calls him over and explains to him, I've got a problem we need to fix here. And then he calls 10 other elders to be witnesses so that there's good witness of this. And then he goes and he talks to this closer relative. And he says, look, our brother Elimelech, he died over there in Moab. And Naomi, his wife, has come back and she now claims his land. But now she's willing to sell it. And by selling it, meaning give it away to another. And Boaz says, you are a closer relative than I am, so you have first opportunity at it. And the man, greedy as he is, rubbing his hands, thinking, ooh, can't turn down more land, right? Especially if it's free. I get it because I'm related to Elimelech. This is great. And so he's rubbing his hands, thinking about himself and his riches and all the things that he's going to get because of it. This is wonderful. But then Boaz adds one more thing. You must also buy it not only from Naomi, but you must also buy it from Ruth the Moabitess, her daughter-in-law. For she too has a stake in that land. And to buy it from Ruth the Moabitess means that you must marry her as well. Well, this man wants nothing to do with that. He wants the wealth, he wants to have the land, but he doesn't want to marry Naomi or Ruth. He doesn't care about watching over her and providing a home and being a good husband. That's not what he wants to do. He just wants the wealth and the riches of the land. That's what he's focused on. And so he turns it down. He says, no, Boaz, if you want it, go ahead, but I don't want it. I don't want that responsibility of being a husband to look after a wife. Okay? So this relative is willing to part with it. He does not care about keeping God's line there in the family of Elimelech. He doesn't care about that covenant or doing what's right because God tells this is what you should do. You should marry this person. But he doesn't. Okay? So he takes off the shoe, gave it away, okay? And that was a picture of what happened there. Now, let's see the marriage ceremony here. We'll go to verse 9. And Boaz said unto the elders and unto all the people, ye are witnesses today that I have bought all that was Elimelech's and all that was Chilion's and Mahlon's of the hand of Naomi. Moreover, Ruth the Moabitess, the wife of Mahlon, have I purchased to be my wife, to raise up the name of the dead upon his inheritance, that the name of the dead be not cut off from among his brethren. And from the gate of his place, ye are witnesses this day. And all the people that were in the gate and the elders said, we are witnesses. The Lord make the woman that is come into thine house like Rachel and Leah, which two did build the house of Israel, and do thou worthily in Ephratah, and be famous in Bethlehem, and let thy house be like the house of Pharez, who Tamar bare unto Judah, of the seed which the Lord shall give thee of this young woman. So Boaz took Ruth, and she was his wife, and he went in unto her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bare a son. And the women said unto Naomi, blessed be the Lord, which hath not left thee this day without a kinsman, that his name may be famous in Israel. And he shall be unto thee a restorer of thy life, and a nourisher of thy old age. For thy daughter-in-law which loveth thee, which is better to thee than 7 sons, hath borne him. And Naomi took the child and laid it in her bosom, and became nurse to it. And the women her neighbors gave it a name, saying, "There is a son born to Naomi," and they called his name Obed. He is the father of Jesse, the father of David. So all of the men are witnesses there. They see what has gone on. They witness, and they not only do they witness, but they speak words of blessing. May the marriage of Boaz and Ruth, may Ruth be like Leah and Rachel, building the house of Israel. How do they build the house of Israel? By having offspring, having children, continuing that line of generations. That is how the house of Israel is built. It's a great blessing to build the house that way by God giving them children. So they marry, and the Lord gives them a son, which gives obviously to Ruth great joy, and gives to Naomi great joy, because the son will bear the name of his of Ruth's first husband, Mahlon. So the name will be continued. And the women that are all gathered there, they give him a name of joy and happiness. They give him the name of Obed, which means the serving one. Ruth now has a place in the land of Canaan, in Israel, as a covenant child of God by a wonder of grace. Obed here we see is going to be the father of Jesse, the father of David. So we see the line of Christ has come from Ruth. Why is that important? Well, it points out a couple of things for us. First, it teaches us that God's promise is not just with the Jews, but with the Gentiles as well. Here he's brought this Gentile, this Moabitess woman, into Canaan and given unto her the promise of the covenant as well. So she has that promise also. That's a beautiful thing. Another reason that God has given us this book is to teach us about the line of Christ. We see here how the line of Christ has continued throughout the Bible. We see that it ends with the name of David here. Last word of the book of Ruth is David. We see exactly how God continues his line. If Boaz had not married Ruth, which is what the devil wanted, the line would have been cut off. God is working here and has brought Ruth out of Moab to marry Boaz, with whom the line will continue, so that Christ can be born of David, but he can also be born of Judah, because Boaz was a child of the line of Judah. So we see that here, how God works. We see how God teaches us and instructs us. We see that promise because we too are Gentiles. We too are brought in. God covers us, as it were, with his skirt and makes us his friends as well. And for that we can be thankful. That's why we serve him and glorify him each and every day.